Why are Cameroon authorities hiding Paul Biya's death? Why? It has now been a week since ABS broke the monumental story that Paul Biya, the president of Cameroon for over 4 decades, is dead. While ABS continues to stand by the story, Cameroon's government, through a flurry of statements from key ministers, has done everything possible to convince the public that Biya is not only alive, but is well and kicking. In the words of Communication Minister Emmanuel Sadi. Yet, despite their insistence, the government has failed to provide any definitive evidence that Paul Biya is alive, raising more questions than answers. Instead, they have resorted to a defensive strategy, demanding that ABS proves its claim, an interesting inversion of the burden of proof. The question is this: which is easier, to present Biya's corpse or simply show him alive? Yet, despite all the speculation and national uncertainty, the government has chosen not to present a living Paul Biya. Why? In this analysis, we delve into the reasons why Cameroon authorities are hiding the announcement of Paul Biya's death. We explore the implications of the delay, and we also review the political and constitutional ramifications that are brewing behind the scenes, as our sources tell us. Why the eerie silence? Instead of quelling speculation by having Paul Biya make a brief appearance on national television or even release a video statement, the government of Cameroon has responded with baffling measures. Among them, a national day of prayer and lamentation for Biya's well-being, a move as perplexing as it is suspicious. For 42 years in power, Biya, a devout Catholic, never once called for the National Day of Prayer. Why now? What is the true purpose of this sudden collective act of devotion? Given the historical context, this is not just a benign call for divine intercession, it smells strongly of manipulation. How do the officials expect the public to believe that this is not a forum of high mass for the repose of Biya's soul or an attempt to symbolically save him from the fires of purgatory? Cameroon's government may be roping or confusing the population to distract them from the truth with such measures, but this has only deepened public suspicion. More tellingly, Cameroon's Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganji, has gone so far as to ban all national discussion on the life status of the president. Why such drastic measures if the man is alive and well? Why not simply present Biya to the people for just a minute? The reluctance of the government to do so only confirms the reports that the president has indeed passed away. This is happening only in a banana republic. Cameroon's handling of the situation reeks of the type of political machinations we have seen in other authoritarian states. The secrecy surrounding Biya's death and the regime's handling of the situation are characteristics of what we might expect from a banana republic, a term often used to describe regimes that manipulate state affairs and violate constitutional principles for the benefit of a small ruling elite. In fact, it is reminiscent of how Nigeria handled the death of President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua in 2010. When Yar'Adua died, Nigerian officials concealed the news for over 2 weeks. This gave them time to negotiate whether power would remain in the Northern Caliphate or transition to the Vice President then, Goodluck Jonathan, a Southerner who had been acting in the president's place during his illness. Ultimately, they decided to allow Goodluck Jonathan to succeed Yar'Adua because being his vice, replacing him was going to be politically suicidal. We are witnessing, ladies and gentlemen, a similar scenario unfold in Cameroon. According to sources close to ABS, the delay in announcing Biya's death is due to the succession plan that must first be finalized. Biya's family is currently in France, along with key power brokers from his cabinet working behind the scenes, coordinated by the French to ensure a transition of power that does not provoke civil unrest or political instability. This is what we are hearing from our sources. ABS sources say that so far, the dust has been settling on the possibility of Frank Biya, Paul Biya's son, succeeding his father. However, it is far from a done deal. Paul Biya himself had been quietly touting the possibility of running for another term before his sudden death, leaving the power vacuum even more complex. Now, with his unexpected passing, meetings are taking place in France. The objective is to put all the pieces in place before making the official death announcement, preventing any political upheaval that might arise from a sudden power shift. Next year's elections are to be postponed. Our sources say one thing is certain: Frank Biya's name is at the forefront of these discussions in France. They say that if Frank ultimately emerges as the successor, next year's presidential elections will be indefinitely put on hold. Frank Biya would rule for 1 or 2 years, giving him time to consolidate power, familiarize himself with the political elite and the populace, and eventually secure an easy victory in the subsequent election. However, Cameroonians should be wary. If Frank Biya is indeed appointed without following constitutional procedure, it is highly unlikely that any re-elections will take place in the near future. This could also mark the beginning of a new dynasty era in Cameroon, where power is passed or passed down within the Biya family, much like we have seen in other authoritarian regimes in the continent. Now, this is what is brewing. This is what is brewing in the background. The potential appointment of Frank Biya is already causing a stir within Cameroon's political elite. Even within Paul Biya's own ruling party, the CPDM, there are factions that are strongly opposed to Frank's succession. Many of these figures are wary of Frank's heavy-handedness or heavy-handed involvement in determining Cameroon's next leader. This faction within the CPDM believes that the country's next president should not be handpicked by France, but should reflect the will of the people, or at the very least, the will of the political elite. Among these dissenters are those advocating for an Anglophone president to take over the reins of power. Prominent names include Prime Minister Joseph Dion Ngute and former Prime Minister Philemon Yang, both of whom are seen as potential candidates who could bridge the divide between Cameroon's Anglophone and Francophone populations. Their argument is simple. Electing an Anglophone, as they call it, or Anglophone president, will not only help resolve the ongoing Ambazonia conflict, but also hold the country in one piece and give the government much needed legitimacy and stability in the eyes of the international community. The Ambazonia conflict has been one of the most pressing issues facing Cameroon in recent years, and many within the political elite see an Anglophone president as a potential solution to the conflict. By appointing someone like John Ngute or Philemon Yang, the CPDM elite think Cameroon could demonstrate to the world that it is serious about addressing the concerns of its Anglophone citizens, many of whom have felt marginalized for decades under Biya's rule. Yet, even this solution is fraught with complications. Would the Francophone majority in Cameroon accept an Anglophone president? Would the military, which has long been loyal to Paul Biya, support such a move? And what role would France play in this scenario? France's involvement, ladies and gentlemen, in Cameroon's politics is undeniable, and it will play a crucial role in determining the country's next leader. As Paul Biya's longtime ally, France has a vested interest in ensuring that Cameroon remains stable and continues to serve French interests in the region. However, this involvement has sparked resentment among many Cameroonians, particularly those who feel that their country should not be beholden to a foreign power. If Frank Biya is installed as president with France's backing, it is likely to provoke a strong backlash from within the CPDM and the broader population. This could lead to a political and constitutional crisis, particularly if the succession process is seen as illegitimate and unconstitutional. In the end, the delay in announcing Paul Biya's death is not just about mourning or giving the family time to grieve. It is about power. Who will hold it? How it will be wielded? And what steps need to be taken to ensure that the transition does not lead to chaos? The longer the announcement is delayed, the clearer the picture that Biya is indeed dead and that there are significant internal struggles taking place within Cameroon's ruling elite. Paul Biya's death, while not yet officially confirmed, marks the end of an era in Cameroon. For over 4 decades, he ruled the country with an iron fist, maintaining power through a combination of political manipulation, repression, and international support. Now, with his sudden passing, Cameroon faces an uncertain future. An uncertain future, ladies and gentlemen. And that is my talking point